Well, I'll just start talking, and maybe in this way, after a while, I can get your attention. I can recite a poem. The boy stood on the burning deck. Okay. So, I just want to remind everyone that the Poetry Festival continues for one more day, tomorrow, when Bruce Andrews from New York and Nathaniel Mackey from Santa Cruz will be reading in Stevenson 102, a larger room than this. Sadly not available to us this afternoon. But the reading on Friday is at 2 o'clock, because of course everyone leaves campus at 3:30 on Friday. Never to be seen again until Monday. So please come to that if you can. Now, now that I've been able to get your attention, I'm just about going to get out of the way, because I did do somewhat of an introduction of Coach Braverman before before Ray read. But I will say, I will boast that I was her thesis director. Took her an MA here, and as I said before, she never followed my advice, but I think that there's a certain use in having advice that you can't, that you won't follow. That you won't follow, not that you can. I'm sure you could have, but it helps you choose and know that you choose and what you choose. And I'm also very glad that I had that experience, because I made a great friend in this way, and I'm very happy that she's here with us today. I like her writing a lot, and I'll just name the books of poetry and prose, which is published. Prose is Palm Latitudes, and before that, Lithium from Medea, and each of these novels is now in print with Penguin. And then there's Lullaby for Sinners, Milk Run, and Hurricane Warnings, the books of her poetry I know. And now we have a new one from Illuminati Press, which is Postcard from August, following the format of the earlier books, where taller than most, and narrower, I guess. It's a striking format. No, I won't walk on it. Okay, so here's Kate Braverman. Give her a big hand.
In autumn, like a northern paella, that plantation town in the jungle we loved. You would find it amusing with its profusion of bars and young women. You who are seduced by landscapes and moments, do not come for Christmas. 6 years you have haunted me in Maui and Los Angeles, Honolulu and Malibu. The Pacific is a permanent contagion. Your name is blue. Your name is agony. You are a narcotic in reverse. I would do anything not to see you. Still, there is this smoldering connection, mysterious, ineluctable. You say Fresno is like Amsterdam in the 60s. You can go back to the jungle now. You have direction. We meet at funerals. You say you don't want to die at 40 or be a tragic character in one of my novels, but you have no character, I reply. Maui was grotesque to be failed so blatantly, repeatedly, when I had that problem smack in the hurricane, your house on the river, that bamboo in the rain. I tried to tattoo you to my flesh. That's what the needles were about. While my arms ache when we speak. Another year of this and I'll have stigmata. Go back to Maui, the jungle, the green of your indolence. Be at McKenna on Christmas like we were 6 years ago, not even holding hands. I put the baby to sleep. You put the make on a tourist from Van Nuys. This smoldering connection, that altar you made with my books in the jungle and that shack smack in the hurricane, You arranged my books like flowers at the ceremony for an Asian god. It was easier than driving. Return to Kathmandu. I have memorized your route. Laps to Honolulu, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Bangkok, and further. Get typhoid in Jakarta. Do not survive this time. OD in Calcutta. I am alone in Katati. I am 36. I read Milton, Shelley, Joyce. It is a process of purification and integrity, a basis after the savagery. Do not come for Christmas. I said you have no character. I said you do not transcend your genre. I said I love you. I said I am wiping you off my horizon. We need a funeral. You are a poison, and this is an exorcism. Die. I thought I'd read some of the poems I wrote during the year I was here. I'm so happy to be back. I love it here. I know I was just here 3 weeks ago, and if I read these poems then, I don't know. This just came out last week. It's called Postcard from August, and it's one long poem in several sections. And this is a section, the first section is called Sensing the Equinox. It is only the going that matters, departures, terminals, the theaters of the void, the perpetual dust above the suburb of San Francisco or Los Angeles, the in-between. Perhaps here it would not be the day of the dead one volcanoes made in the ambience of strident with apocalypse that does not come. No lost ship, no aberrant swaying in a corrupted midnight wanton with lies. It's just us drinking too much with the radio too loud. In the light rain, a woman waits for a stretched limo. She is immaculate, anointed, unafraid. It is the tropics. It is always the tropics. The rest is insignificant. As for us, there is the wanting too much and the inevitable detox. There is disappointment. A spectacular gash forms across the heart which has its own horizon. It's just the drugs of course, and perspective is worse. Meanwhile, we are immolated with grief. Each arrival is an atrocity, the season's wrong. I could go on, and I did, frantic, confessing my passions to men who were indifferent, showing them my bags of pathetic ashes, there, beyond the gutted villages, in the remote interior, where the sky adjusts itself above the degenerate highway, above the motels and gas stations, the fabric of the mediocre without edges or scorn, there, in the in-between, in the aggravated monotony, in the nothing that moves. I wrote that in Roman text. Just get on a plane on a raw, livid day in an LA March. Hot as August. Don't give me your travel plans. You belong to an island off Thailand. I am immune to specifics. There is only the grotesque press of too much Pacific, the sense of delirium in seasons utterly different, all forms, spices, songs. I could be wrong. Perhaps you will learn the indelible. Oceans can have an end like a love affair. Obsessions, even the compulsion is sin. One can survive the longing for absolution by excess and destruction. Nothing will ever again be Kahului. Those palms, those green, aching, lavish and hungry arms. It was singular on the Hana Bay, how the sails looked like syringes, how the strings are gone, laced with alcohol, the passion fruit of damnation. Nothing will ever again be my house on the hill in Silver Lake, where we touched in the language of the dead, the cremated, the flagrantly dispatched, the victims of assassins perhaps. These are the variables: desire, distance, and what we chance to remember. Nothing will ever be that February of floods in Sonoma again. 101 closed to the south, the north no lights. We burned a cord of wood and silk amaretto and Percodan. You will leave 10,000 times. You will never return. Thank God, right? On a riverbank in Mendocino, I hold the hand of a man I do not love. I see color in the air where there is none. We live by brutal fictions. Flagrant exaggerations are intrinsic and necessary, a banal gesture perceived as flamboyant, wicked. The river is not blank but burdened by clouds, subjecting smoke, an interior highway. We insist on resonance. We anoint the mundane. These are not dull stones we kick at random, but a circle, a ritual on the shore of a river, cold even in summer. It is the impulse to embroider and refine that survives. We are negligible beside thorn grasses we call beautiful. These redwoods are intimidating and vaguely malignant. We do not speak of this. The unloved hand is taken, not fraudulence in darkness, but a matter of interpretation, the unceasing negotiation with deprivation and extravagance. We are, after all, human. The highway to Bodega Bay, winding through Queen Anne's lace and aster in a white and yellow lay above the Russian River, happens only once, like birth. This is why we buy souvenirs, send postcards, and give our daughters the names of flowers, iris, hyacinth, rose. Is there something I missed in this desperate hallucination? A subtle angular refinement, a polished ornament, or a chance remark? I was thinking today when I drove out in May to Bodega Bay that I distilled a moment that was one of the most beautiful moments certainly I've ever had. It was certainly May, taking the road out to Bodega Bay. This is a poem I wrote by the duck pond. Pyro camphor by the lake, red as the ginger by the river in Luejo where we live. You pollute the landscape. Red as the hibiscus, the betrayal. That tropical autumn, the wet red of it, damp plumeria, the assault of stars and you, my twin in the demean of indolence, Kona wind and palms, the threat of hurricanes, the constant rain. I sit beneath pine trees in Tecate, near a lake where willows drown, pampas grass, red maples. I am aroused by the ruin, the season shifting ominous, red pyrocanthal like a promise of death by fire, and there is blood between us. You will die young. Pneumonia every winter, even in the tropics. You will die alone. And this is not an invitation. Remember Luejo, my love, where I gave you artificial respiration and my heart. I used to go around with these poems, Marty, remember? I had them, and I would, look for people. David, Jerry, Marty. Hey, look! This is one of the places in the world where I really love to be and where I feel like I heal. And I did take some of your suggestions. I paid a lot more attention to titles, David. And I gave them jazzier titles, and Luejo, that was a word we figured out together. Actually, the town in Maui was not called Luejo. It had a different name. And they had my poems. They had them, and they wouldn't send them out to me. They were paranoid. And so David came up with an idea of a different name. So that's how Luejo was born. Okay. This is from the section of the book called Postcards from August. The Pacific is a slow, drugged, and electric blue beyond blue of all the distant clarity. You return to it like opium. No time has passed. All is forgiven. It's seeing the air naked and wearing ritual plumeria again, and clouds with intoxicated edges like mirrors or frames, a green that seems to mean something. Here it might be possible to stop smoking and rediscover themes, birth, volcanoes, the strange stars. I tell you, my poet's heart is hard. Above, a storm coalesces beneath turquoise. Borneo and Bali appear not anomalies, but a logical progression into green. Perhaps Hawaii won't be enough. I'm still an addict. I want to shoot it up. This purple cove, this Nepali coast, I want it on my tongue, in my eyes and lungs, this sun, this wind, these blue definitions. In a cane field, Gabrielle says, it's a poem without words. Later, I teach her what the ocean is, gradations of blue breaking at her feet like the 10,000 fingers in the imploring hands of a newly formed blue deity. Then the arrested dusk, the onrush of the soft blue glistening vagaries, the sanctioned hours, and the way she rubs her mouth. I have lived half my life constantly turning a corner and finding the woman I was 6 months before inexplicable. A person I effortlessly shed, rent a new apartment, stay in the cafe. Well, thank God, that's over. Now it's islands I crave, islands that infiltrate my conventions with wild birds and fluid dialects and alphabets of blue mounds and skies with massed clouds and complicated rituals of tenderness and blue rain. In my 40th year, I have come to know distance and blueness and what being claimed by an ocean is. This is a marriage I have always expected. 1 hour east of Oahu, Borneo, and Fiji, and Bali are my cousins. I could go there, into the dynasties, littering the flesh of the Pacific. These jewels, these reefs, this matrix, this turquoise interpretation. If there were only green, would it be a form of truth, the way avenues are, mathematics and cities, doorbells and how we answer? Would we take our names from birds in the curvature of wings? Would we worship the singular definitions, the languid assumptions, the way space and time coalesce on the fluid horizon? 2 ships, 6 stars, the moon sawed in half. What of the tunnel of eucalyptus alongside the road near Wahui, vanishing into cane fields, into a seamless intelligence? I know this jungle, with its burdened altitudes and exaggerations, the Wailua River running down from the interior out of nothing, or green without moderation or lighthouses or satellites. It does as it chooses. Torches on the peninsula, and how it spells newborn with a constant hint of rain, plunaria, impatient moonlight, and the way the clouds weigh nothing. This is the last section of this book. It's called Silence, and I'll just read it straight through. I'll tell you how I wrote the last part of it, though. I was listening to Neruda, my favorite poet, the Machu Picchu sequence on tape, and I began to make a loose translation of the poem. And then I wrote a narrative between the loose translation and then I crossed out the translation. It just doesn't matter how you get them, in my opinion. The palms on the streets of Hollywood have nothing in common with Maui, where all green is a seduction into the irrevocable. I know, the islands nearly killed me. These LA trees are less intense and demanding. They do not require blood as a rite of passage. Simply pass. No one is asked anything. No one is counting. It is 1 week before spring. Lawns are precocious with bird of paradise, and throwaway blossoms stylistically insignificant. There's a cumulative effect. It is 1 year later I am home. These streets seem more serene than when I left them, abandoned them to their frantic and brutal dawn. The sky is undilapidated, no longer a cheap circus tent left to rot in the sun. Who knows why this terrain has been clarified and redeemed? I am 40 and alone, and it's not what I thought. With my short French haircut, my students in Spanish poetry, the walks I take in dust hills with the city still and anointed in a hot night. My nights are always hot. That hasn't changed. My hots are always night. I like that. Yet of course I chose this. I took entirely different vows. Walked into the jungle carrying an infant. I courted destruction, oceans and narcotics, the dark side of the tropics. I was purified by intensity. I demanded an infinity of green, and occasionally I got it. What is there to fear? It is only death or failure or some blue agony that burns. It is only me, after all, finally possessing this sensibility, this sudden autumnal island I birth over coffee, recognizing how undamaged are these interiors with their green echoes and bridges and praying green mouths. It is for love we let breezes rustle our hair, let our faces become a season where leaves scatter in complications of charcoal and russet. You can look at my lips and see where I've been and where the taint is. It is for this and nothing but. We study fruit in the market above the Saturday harbor, balancing pears in our palms, holding them up to the light like syringes of morphine or jewels in an augury. This is why we beat the women clean on rock, why we drape teeth around our necks like captured moons. This is why we meet the ships, and how we recognize the face in a cameo. What is there but men and time in their conclusions, the way the eyes close, the sad life and nights of the lost feasts and mouths and frontiers, the decades of balconies with men with their received secrets and tainted memories stand by windows in rain, or sleep at last with a sense of the moon and the jungle and God, to be cold and give testament. After the small atrocities by lamplight, you remember the sea and the proportions of the heart, washed by thoughts of ancient places and orchids, the color of Rome. There is earth and silence and trembling and clouds in all the ruined latitudes. You say we are bodies with hands, words, and blood in the nights of impossible gatherings beneath jacaranda trees. Always you are alone, with prophecies of cancer and water and savage inhabitations in the primitive country, then weeks of air and the solitude of deserted capitals repeating in the final time. You say our bodies are ultramarine, like suffering and sweet masks, and returning to the terrace in the last light, in the same transparencies, longing for boasts and splendor and a history of yellow. You string phrases in green air I call modern. Here you know the violets and the postures of loss and the sovereign waiting, when you talk of love and children, leaving before wind combs their hair, before the hard ceremonies, when we are sick from fire and earth and water in a country of mountains that has our names. Thank you. Here I am.
Will you tolerate the... Okay, right. Any questions or comments? I wish I participated in conversations like that. The conversations in your poems are so marvelous. I feel like I should have conversations of that order.
But you do.
But you would hear them that way, I see. That's how you would hear them. Yeah,
Well, I just want to tell you how happy I am to be here. You know, the year I spent here was really a very happy year for me, despite the fact that I was bankrupt and disgraced and humiliated and things like that when I left Los Angeles. And I was lonely. But there's such the immensity of the beauty of Sonoma County is it's one of the great things of my life. So I am here. I've come a great distance. I know you want to know what it's like, and I'm prepared to tell you.
What's like?
Being a writer, you know, I don't know if I'm even going to call myself a poet anymore. Someone told me that my poems were like miniature novels, and my novels are like epic poems. So I think I just might just say, in my capacity as a writer, I'm pleased to be here. Postcard from August is just a long, I mean, it is a book-sized poem in sections. And many of these poems, I don't know if I told you this, but when I'm writing novels or short stories, and I reach a point of, well, it's always a great darkness doing a novel or short story. And when I want to know what to do, I pick poems up and I throw them and they flare up. That's like they illuminate, you know, the path where they are. So many of these poems from Postcard from August are my new book of short stories, which is coming out in October. Yeah, come in.
Do you believe that people can be taught to write? But you can write of experience, how you go from there.
You know, it's interesting because I've been doing so much teaching in the last couple of years, including my private students. I've been there for a long time. And, you know, for the last couple of years, I've been thinking you can teach people to write. And very recently, I've come to the conclusion that you cannot teach people to write. You can teach them to write much better. You can teach them to stop making mistakes. You can teach them to give the appearance of sophistication and substance. But you can't really teach them to write. But most people, I don't think, know the difference. So in that way, I suppose you can teach them to write. I mean, you can certainly teach people how to publish and you know, get books done and give readings and, you know, so, but in the ultimate sense, it's not what you know about words. It is truly what you know about the universe. Although words are certainly used up here. So, yes and no.
I just feel like I know what I'm thinking. That I didn't know anything about style or composition, and I really didn't care enough to even listen. And I haven't...
And look how far you've gotten.
Well, I haven't gotten much further because I stopped and went to psychoanalysis and took care of my kids and started writing a little bit. Essays on my own, reading my own. But it's just, I can't write anything that sounds any good unless it's something I feel. Unless it's real to me. I mean, I go into a test and they say, you know, give me a sample of the writing, and they give you one of these dumb questions, and you don't even agree with the question. I can't. I just feel like wondering. I mean, I think that teaching art is the same like teaching visual art is the same problem as teaching literature or teaching writing. That, and that, I don't know, somebody has to have a feel for it.
I'll tell you, maybe I've been thinking, I told this to someone, maybe it was an interview, but it's not enough that you choose it must also choose you. And the people I know who've worked all their lives, and I do think that there is that other element, that the magic, you know, it's not enough that you choose to do it, it must choose you to do it also. It's like a dance.
Do you find yourself needing to write fiction more than poetry, or one more than another?
Yeah, I think I figured out how it works for me. And it's like every couple of years, I'm writing a novel now. I have 9 days off of my teaching schedule. I wrote the first draft of a novel during those 9 days. So I'm trying to recover from still. It was about, what was it, spring break? The last quarter break, I guess it was 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago. And I would just, novels are the great for me. That's when everything that you know goes into the novel. And I'm looking more and more at my poems as being notes for the novels. And I found that a novel just takes more than what you have at a given point in time. You know, Palm Latitudes was more than I knew about the world at that point of time. It's like when you have to grow a new lung. You know, it takes 7 years to grow new cells and have a new lung. I think it takes you know, five years anyway to recover from a novel and become someone else. And during that time, I think I'd write poems and short stories. And I just, you know, I don't care so much about writing poems as I do. That's how I take notes. I don't keep a journal. I don't really have that much correspondence. I had told a library about 2 years ago that I would give them my papers, and I continue to throw all my papers away because I just don't think it's anybody's business. And, you know, I'm looking at these things with notes because the poem is such a condensed form, and it's natural for me to write these things that I call poems. And later I see how to dramatize them. And I would just as soon write stories or novels than write poetry, which seems to be rather a small world that I don't have a ticket into especially. Whereas, you know, I'm doing well with my novels and my short stories.
Are you writing every day?
I would write every day if I didn't have to work. I didn't work for many years, in fact, because that's very relatively new for me to be an adult. You know, I am having so much fun being an adult. I must tell you that I never had a job. I'm now an associate professor at Cal State LA. And I have my private students and these other things. And I just had this, it was wonderful coming here. You know, I made my own reservations. I decided when I was going to leave, and I sat at the back of the plane, you know, and I thought, this is like Disneyland. First goes. It's going away to a place she loves to be on business, give a poetry reading. And I thought, what an e-ticket. I was sure back of the plane, and then renting a car in Oakland, an experience singular unto itself. This car, I have no idea where I am, and this car is diametrically opposed to my car. You know, you press the radio and the wipers go on. You turn up the wiper and the windows open. You know, and it's just. And driving up here, and I could do anything I wanted today. And I drove to Bodega Bay, and I got a cafe latte in Sebastopol. And I'm really happy. I think it's a wonderful moment. I talk so much about the solitude and the pain and the suffering of writing, but it does too have its really wonderful moments. I'd like to tell you that so you know that. Yes.
You're fine living the bourgeois life, sitting with your imagination.
I'll tell you, Marty, I don't feel like my imagination needs any stimulation. And you know, the most exciting thing I ever do is sit in a room alone. I've got to tell you. And in terms of a bourgeois life, I'm surprised by how much I do. I'm a single parent. I've been alone with my daughter since she's 3 weeks old. And I run my house, my little penthouse in Beverly Hills. Thank you, Valentine's Day. And I keep, you know, I take care of the garden. I do the grocery shopping. I clean the house. I have a full-time professorship. I'm running a writing conference. I don't know, I have my private students. I do a lot of reading. And I find that I write better when I'm not afraid of being hungry or not having a rent or what's going to happen to my daughter. There's nothing romantic about being cold or hungry. I was cold and hungry for a long time, and I'm here to tell you that I write better when I'm not worried about my future. I mean, it was fine to be worried in my bohemian days, you know, but I have a child and I'm not interested in being insecure and terrified all the time. Yeah.
You revise it?
I revise relentlessly. And I'm trying to do less of it. You know, I think I rewrite too much. I just had a conversation with a student about rewriting, and I said that rewriting is an acquired taste. You know, there's, you know, it's one of those things, like many things I'm sure we can all think of, where you just have to keep doing it for a while before you come to like it. I'm trying to do in my life now something about only going for the big ones and cutting the small ones off and throwing them back, and being able to have a better sense right away whether they're big or whether they're small. Because I just used to compulsively, you know, work on everything. Everything. I need it all. And you know, I'd rather just get the big ones now. And then the other side of that is that it's just as hard to work on an album cut as it is a top 10 cut. Yeah. You know, you have to work on them both the same difficulty factor. I'll just tell you this about that. Everything I write with my stories anyway, I try to do the best with them that I can, because it seems like the next story, somehow the seeds of it are in the story before it. You know, there's something that I need to know from doing that, even if I'm never going to publish it. Yeah.
You were writing, continue to have this love-hate relationship with men.
It's a love-hate relationship with a man, first of all. And, no, I'm not doing that so much anymore. I'm not really interested in doing that so much anymore. My new book is about a 14 or 15-year-old girl in 1966. It doesn't mean I have to be so much anymore. I'm trying to get a job in Vermont now. I think my editor was out here. I said, please, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, please.
I think that you feel right about these things no matter where you were, because you say, you know, if I got time, I was in the park, I was in Toddy in the park when I wrote that. It was always about jungles and language, which was dead and vicious. That's amazing and truly fantastic. You know, words and systems and everything. But there's always contact.
Kate, I was thinking about that story you sent me recently that goes back to
Yeah. There were very good evocations of the local landscape in that, but I don't think there was any jungle.
No, it wasn't. It was winter in the body. It was cold and raining. And, you know, I think that, I just love landscape, and I would be perfectly happy just to watch the same group of trees change outside a window for the rest of my life. You know, I'm not interested in going anywhere. I'm not interested in doing anything. I live in Los Angeles, like it's a small town. I don't have a TV. I don't subscribe to a newspaper. I don't read a magazine unless I have an interview in it. You know, I don't go anywhere. I don't go to the museum. I don't go to the music center. I don't go to Hollywood Bowl. I don't go to the Whiskey or the Roxy. I'm just not interested in going anywhere. I just want to be with my child and write and look at the world as it changes. So if anybody knows of someone who would just like to give me some place in the country where I could live and teach a couple of creative writing classes, I am available. Definitely.
Do you think that the problem on getting into the social circle is in the office poetry, that's not just a financial?
Yeah, I do.
So I talked to a couple of people who say similar things down to like this. Even if you do something that's great.
Yeah, that's my impression, is that, you know, I studied anthropology at Berkeley, and I did not study English, and then I came here much later in my career. I was here in 85, 86, and got a master's in English. But, you know, you know, I'm just not part of an academic circle of poets or something, and so I just taking my chances, you know, with mainstream publishing in New York. And I think you can have a career either way. You know, and I think you can have a fine life either way. I just, for me, it is, I feel like it's more open for me. But I just had this conversation with David about writing poetry, and it was very, you know, I appreciated that. I mean, you know, I just take all my poems, I put them into my stories anyway. You know what I say in my poems? I never have in a novel, I never have someone just walk through a window. They walk through a window so they can say, Pirate Camp by the lake, whether, you know, and I just put all my poems into my novels anyway. So. Okay, is this it? Can we go? Yeah. Dinner time? Yeah. Thank you all for coming. What's for sale?
And at the back of the room. And for those of you who are part of the class who meets this time, I think we could regard it as over for the day. It's, but it lacks in length, it makes up for in intensity. So remember, next week,